Hello everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio. Today I'm sharing with you the speed up version of the Art Joy of Sharing channel live stream that I did on Thursday, May 2nd. And this is my Pick a Stick Challenge art journal page, which the Pick a Stick Challenge is a Facebook art community where we offer 3 challenges that are based on one word, randomly drawn prompts. So for the page, there's 6 prompts that you do them in order. And then there are a couple wild cards that you can use if you don't like one of the prompts, which I did in the first step here. I decided to do wet in wet instead of doing the first prompt, which was staple, because I had art on the other side of my page and I didn't want to, you know, mess it up by putting staples in the middle of it. You, of course, could staple your piece onto something else and then glue it on there. I could have done that, but I decided to just do wet and wet. So I'm using my Distress Oxide sprays and pads in the same colors together today, and I sprayed some water on the page. I sprayed some of the Distress Oxide into it. When it started to run a little bit, I kind of blotted it, and then I dried that layer, and now I'm putting a layer through a stencil, and I did add in a third color. The colors for the month are violet and pistachio, so I used cracked pistachio and wilted violet Distress Oxide, and then I added in some abandoned coral. Coral is the color of the year, and I think it goes with these other two really well, so I did that. Then that went through a stencil, which is a Stencil Girl stencil, and then now I'm adding some math equations with another Stencil Girl stencil that I have. I'll put all the links to the stencils and the products that I use in the description box below the video in case you're curious which ones they are. That one I believe is designed by Kat Kerr. So the next step was clay. And I had this paper clay piece that had been made into in a push mold and then dried. And so I decided to use that, and I painted it with some Deco Art Metallics bronze paint and added a little bit of shading using the ink pads that I had before with a little bit of purple and stuff. So then here I'm talking about the third step, which is Octagon. And I'm talking about how I made these templates to cut my different collage papers into octagon shapes. I didn't have a punch or a die cut or anything, not even a stencil that had octagon. Lots of things with hexagons, which have 6 sides, but not anything with octagons. And so I had to do, I had to mess around. I made some templates, and I explained in this how I made them and how I measured and everything and how it was messed up. And at that point, as I was making the octagons, I decided that this page is actually inspired by how I'm not very good at mathy things and how I feel inadequate now that my kid has been accepted for his doctorate program in mathematics. And he's like so far ahead of me in any math thing. It never used to bother me. Not at all, but now that he's like this big math guy, I feel like I should know more about math, and I don't even know how to make a proper mathematic octagon. I don't know the math for it. So then this is when I decided that I would make a page with, and now that's why I put the math equation stencil on the background. And then I don't know if you guys have seen this trend of making things out of very angled, I'm not really sure what it's called, but there's a lot of statues and different home decor pieces and stuff that are the shape that they are, but then everything is made out of flat planes and angles. And so I just decided to try to go for that type of a look with my page, using these octagons to create a saguaro cactus that's blooming and a prickly pear cactus that has some fruits on it. And then I'm making this ocotillo, which is, of course, my favorite desert plant, out of some other paper that I cut into strips using pinking shears. And that one, I took that paper and I wadded it up, and I scrunched it and I made it wet, and that's my harsh I was very harsh and rude to that paper, and I really beat it up. And so you saw me doing that earlier, and that's what that was for. Then the step pearls, I decided to use stick-on pearls and make them kind of like the highlights where you might see sun glinting off of the spikes and thorns and spines that are on cactus. So I put all those all over the place on my cactuses. And then the final number 6 was draw. And I decided to draw a cactus wren sitting on the top of one of these arms of the saguaro, right on top of the bloom, I guess. And I'm drawing that using a Posca pen, which is a acrylic paint pen. And then I'm going to eventually kind of give it a little bit more color using the same ink pads, the Wilted Violet, Cracked Pistachio, and Abandoned Coral ink pads with a water brush, but I don't do that quite yet. I draw it and then I think to myself, what else do I need? Well, I need ground. You know, I can't stand it when things don't have ground, when they're just floating. So I draw my ground and then I add, this is now I'm just doing detailing stuff at this point. I'm adding some more of that copper paint around to make the face of the sun kind of stand out a little bit, that clay piece. And then I decided to do shadows with a Stabilo All pencil in black and a water brush. The water brush has water in the handle, so it stays moist and wet, and I could squeeze it a little bit if I need a little bit more water to blend this water reactive pencil to make these cactus stand out from the background. I also added some white splatter over the cactuses to add a few more spots of white where there might be some spines. I wasn't going to completely cover them in pearls. You know, I'm just kind of giving the hint of spines. And then with the white Posca pen, I'm adding highlights to my cactus wren as well. And I still haven't colored it. It's still just the color of the background. And this is where I get out some of the ink pads and I kind of get some of the ink onto the lid by squeezing the lid down onto the pad and then picking that ink up with my water pen and applying it to the bird, because I guess he's become a focal image. I didn't even, when I planned I did actually plan this because I was going to be live and I knew I needed to know what I was going to be doing when I was doing it live. And of course, this is the sped up version of the live. If you want to watch the real time version, I'll put a link in the iCard above or at the end screen so that you can go and watch the real time live stream. It's of course recorded at this point, but it's still the same thing. You can read the comments that people made and everything during the show. That's on Art Joy of Sharing live stream channel, which I do with Peg Robinson. And then this is the sped up version of what I did on that show. So I add some more shadows around the bird and at the bottom of the sunshine just to make these things stand out from the background a little bit better. And I add some highlights onto the sun with the white Posca pen because I just love the white Posca pen. And at this point, I'm just detailing. I'm touching up. I'm adding extra lines and dots and different things around. I decide that that's too white. The highlights are too white, so I go over it with my sponge applicator. And, you know, this is just fussing stuff at this point. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment or question below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this on Pinterest if you want to. And, of course, if this is your last video for today, please click on to Jimmy Fallon or something because if you leave my video as the last one, I get punished for that apparently. I found out recently. So I think that's it for me. I'll be sure that there's links to the Facebook group and things like that in the description box below. Thanks. Bye-bye.